Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here with you today to share another What Would You Make collaboration. We have our wonderful hosts. First is Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIY. We have Christine with Divine Design, and we have Alicia with Lavender and Lace. You will find links to all of their channels in my description box below, along with a link to the playlist of all the creators that are participating in this collaboration. Let's move on to project number 1. So, the first thing I have gathered here is I have some number 20 wood biscuits. I have some thick cardstock. I have some Dollar Tree jewels, but I didn't use those. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a square out of my card. Now, the easiest way to do this, if you do not have a scoreboard or something square, fold it in half. You're going to need a triangle anyway for what I'm doing. So I fold it in half and I cut off the excess that's hanging off the bottom. Then I fold the piece back and forth using my scissors to burnish it down. And because it is a heavy duty card, it does start to crack down the center. I'm going to use my scissors and just come up and cut this at a triangle for the square. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to create a little bit of flexibility in my triangle. In order to do that, you can run it on the edge of your table, but you wouldn't be able to see me filming that. So I'm using my ruler here, and I'm holding the ruler down while I pull that card up, and it curls and breaks down the fibers in this cardstock so that it is a little bit more maneuverable. Maneuverable? You know what I mean. Anyway, it's a little bit easier to maneuver that card. So now I'm using some double-sided tear and tape, and I am going to continue to work on that card to break it down. I'm going to go ahead and release the tape, and I am going to continue to use the warmth of my hands to move this card into a cone. Like I said, this is heavy duty card, so I wanted something that was going to stand up and be sturdy enough for what I wanted. I am lining those edges up and pushing that tape down into the other side of that cone. And I'm going to come in with something that I can actually reach down in there a little deeper than my fingers and press, burnishing that tape to the other side of that cardstock. I can't reach clear up to the tip of that cone, so I just use the tips of my scissors. I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim that all off to create a cone. Now it's time to count out some biscuits. And I think I gathered like 23 to begin with, but I did end up needing some more after that. So I'll give you the total number that I did, but it's also going to just depend on how big of a tree you make. I used a total of the tree and the base. I used a total of 33 biscuits. So I am now taking some matte Mod Podge and I'm laying it on the top of a biscuit. It doesn't matter, the same on both sides. Laying it nice and thick and then pressing it in to some burlap ribbon. This burlap ribbon is wired and 2 inches. You don't have to have the wired ribbon. It ends up being cut off anyway, and you'll see that here in just a minute. Once that glue is fairly dry onto the burlap ribbon, I'm taking some hot glue around the edge of the biscuit and I'm pulling it up nice and tight. That burlap is going to be pulled up over the edge of that biscuit. When that is dry, we're going to trim it off. And here we're just trimming it off, and that's why having a wired ribbon doesn't matter because it's all getting cut off here. I'm just going to go around and I'm going to trim all of these biscuits up. Now, the ones that I'm going to use on the bottom, which will be a total of 4 for the base, those don't need to have burlap on them. So we're just going to trim up the rest of those and get them all ready to start our tree. Once they are all trimmed up, I'm coming right back in with some hot glue on half of the biscuit side. Now I'm going to lay them touching edge by edge to edge along the widest part of the biscuit, and I'm going to lay them around the bottom of the cone, coming down past the cone the other half of the biscuit, creating a little stand on the cone. Once one layer is glued all the way around the cone, I'm going to come in between where you can see the card, and I'm going to add some moss. I'm going to do this all around the top and the bottom if there is any card showing. Once that first layer is done, I'm going to come around and start the next layer, and those are going to line up halfway down once again with the bottom half covering over where the two bottom biscuits touch. So I'm going to come around and do my best to line this up so that this tree has some dimension going in between each of the bottom ones. So you're just going to layer so that they come across, and where there's the opening, you're going to add that biscuit. I'm going to come back in once again with that moss and fill in any openings. So once I got the bottom part all covered, and I did 3 layers in that, I went ahead and used the other triangle, created another cone, and glued that on the top. And now here I go again, matching up where the half of the biscuit is going along the bottom rim and covering where the opening and the biscuits on the bottom layer are. So it's kind of like when you're doing a quilt ornament where you're folding it and covering, just going down in between where the other two met up. Oh, gosh, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I am just going along and finishing up adding the moss and the biscuits to this tree. All right, so now we are filling in the last of this tree with the moss and just coming on in and making sure there is none of that cardboard poking through those burlap biscuits. Once we get that all done, I'm taking this twig here from the Dollar Tree, those little wood branches. I've had these in my stash for a few years, guys. And I'm taking biscuits and creating a piece on top of that little twig to create the base to go inside my tree. Now, because it's not round, I wanted to make sure I had something on there that would go all the way around the inside of the tree with that trunk just giving it some stability. So I'm measuring out the bottom, and I'm going to cut a piece of card to fit on the inside of my tree. The way I do that is I measured the inside, and the opening was 2 1/4. And so I just drew a line, 2 1/4, and then I came in and I did it, was 2 1/2, it was 2 1/4. So I went to 1 1/8 in the center and drew the line to 2 1/4. And I did that all the way around, creating the spiral of a circle. Now it's easier here to use like a little compass that you can put a pencil in and just draw a circle all the way around. Easier, but my compass is upstairs and I am not going to run upstairs. I've needed a knee replaced for 3 years now, and it is getting to the point where I'm back using my cane all the time. So I wasn't going up the stairs. So I did it this way, creating that circle to go into the bottom. Now I'm just taking that little circle I created, and you see I cut it on the outside of the lines, and it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to press it up in there so the edges of that card will press onto the inside edges of my tree. So once I get that glued on top of the twig, which is now the trunk of my tree, I'm coming in and hot gluing all around the outside edge of that cardstock so it will push up and bend down when I get it underneath my tree. Once it's all glued up in there and nice and secure, I'm coming back in with hot glue and filling that whole bottom part with my moss. Now you cannot tell that there is card under there, and that twig now stands as the trunk of my biscuit burlap tree. It's a little funky, guys, but I think it's fine. It's definitely rustic. But now I'm going to come in with some of those little pine cones. I think that's hemlock. I don't remember. It's from one of the trees that create these little tiny cones. And they're actually in my daughter's yard. And I go and I gather them up and I save them because they're perfect for crafters. And I glued those on to the tree in just sporadically in between where those biscuits meet up. Now I'm coming in with some good old wooden clothespins. These are cheaper to get at Walmart. And the big pack, you get more for right around $2. And you get more than, I think, double what you would get at the Dollar Tree. So I'm coming in with a little bit of wood glue and a little bit of hot glue. After I had taken those apart and glued them back to back, creating those little I've made snowmen out of them in the past, and these were leftovers, and I was trying to make like a snowflake or something. Anyway, you see, I'm just going to glue those together with a tad of hot glue and wood glue, press them together, and that hot glue is going to grab that and hold them together while my wood glue dries. Why? Because I'm impatient. I'm very impatient crafter. It's terrible. So once those tips are all glued together, I'm coming in and using the hot glue and the wood glue, and I'm gluing them around the base of my tree now. I'm taking the thinner side of those clothespins glued together and a little bit of hot glue and a little bit of wood glue, making sure one has the wood glue, one has the hot glue, and just pushing it together around the base of that tree. I had to prop it up because it's not very flat on the bottom of that little twig. So I just propped it up with my Mod Podge bottle and continued all the way around this tree. That was together and all dry, I mixed some white glue, water, white acrylic paint, and some cornstarch. Now, what I did right here is I keep cornstarch on my desk for my molds and so forth. And so I just have that little jar of it, and I'm mixing those together really, really well. And I am making some snow paste here. So now I can come in and just dazzle up my tree with blobs of snow. And that's all I'm doing, just on the end of my brush, nice and chunky, and dragging it right on down that tree. Once I have it on the tree, I'm coming in along the bottom with my hot glue and moss again, and I'm going to cover that whole bottom with the moss, and then I'm going to add some more of that snow paste that I created. Now don't forget to wait till the end of the video for the final reveal. Oh my goodness. Okay guys, project number 2. This one is my absolute favorite. I am in awe of how beautiful this turned out. Don't forget to check my description box below for the hosts and the playlist to this wonderful collaboration.
All right, guys. Now, I had shared in the past a 1800s candle box that I found at the Goodwill for just like $4. When I went on that Goodwill trip, I also found this. And this, it is very old. It has some, not nails, but something that they use on the side that I've never seen before. And I'm going to try to show you that right there. Can you see right here? It is a metal piece that's just hammered in there that's kind of at a zigzag, and it's on all the corners, and I've never seen anything like that before. If anybody knows, please let me know what type of, I mean, I don't know. I've never seen anything quite like that, but it is definitely a handmade piece. I don't know how old it is, but it's pretty grimy. I got this for $3 at the Goodwill, guys, and you can tell it's been out in the weather. The handle here, it's called a trug, T-R-U-G, and it just needs some cleaning up. So I am going to go ahead and spray this down and clean it up because I think there's actually mold growing right there. So let's just clean this up a little bit, and then I will see what we have from there. When I looked online to try to find something like this, they range anywhere from $30 to $300. And so I don't know where this falls into place, but I'm going to clean it up because it needs to be cleaned up so it can be preserved a little bit better at this point. So let's get started.
First thing I needed to do was get the mud off of the wood. This was caked in thick dirt from being outside. It looks like this was a garden tray at one point, only because of the size. If it was shorter, I would say it was where they would store their knives and silverware. I guess it still could be, but you can tell, look at all that mud that is now coming up now that I've spritzed that down just a little bit. It is still so thick. I had to use my putty knife to come in and scrape what I could off of this. I was being very gentle because I don't want to damage this any more than it is. The wood on the inside of this is very fragile right now, but I came in and I sprayed it again and scraped it down once more before taking it to the kitchen and scrubbing it with some Murphy's oil soap after getting the top layer of this grunge off of here. Okay, let's move on and let me show you what I've done. So this has now been scrubbed down in my kitchen sink with some Murphy's oil soap and a scrub brush. Look at now, you can see that wood grain where you had no idea before. And the area I thought was mold is green paint underneath all that dirt. Okay, so I got this cleaned up and I used my heat tool to dry this. And you can see right there where that paint is. And I want to get this totally dry before I can move on to the next step. Okay, so you can see it's nice and dry now, and it is 19.5 inches on the inside. So this box is actually 20 inches long and 10 inches wide. The inside is 19.5 by 9.5. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this old piece of, this is a piece of, oh my goodness, poster board, woohoo! And you can see it has the grid marks on there, and it was from fiscal year 2011. This is when I was working in management for a large medical company. We had like over 17 hospitals and over 100 different doctors' offices that we managed. And I was doing just the difference in it doesn't matter what I was doing. Anyway, I'm trimming this up to fit the inside of my tray. And I'm just using those guidelines, that grid, which is very light, to guide me where I'm cutting here to make sure that it fits perfectly inside my box. Because I am not going to do anything else to this box, guys. This is a very old piece of history, and I am holding on to it. But what I wanted to do is make sure I can transform this every year. And in order to do that, I am cutting out some poster board. I am drawing the poster board out and marking it up where I need it to be. And then I'm going to draw lines every 2 inches. And I'm creating the wood panel on the inside of my board. I know. I just didn't have the heart to do anything to that tray. I just couldn't do it. Cleaning it up was hard, but it needed to do it because the wood was falling apart. So I'm coming in now with my chocolate sprinkle, and I am very, very messily adding that to the stripes that I drew onto my board. Now I'm coming in with my matte Mod Podge onto this poster board because I'm going to seal this so I can paint it. And in order to do this, I needed to Mod Podge it to seal my my paper for this poster board. Now, once it was dry, I came in to iron it to flatten my poster board out. And look, don't iron over the top of Mod Podge. I know better than that. So I'm like, think. Okay, let's paint it first. Let's just paint it first. So I came in with my hazelnut and a very dry chippy brush. And I'm going to take my dry chippy brush and dip it and then drag over the top of that poster board and that Mod Podge. Just drag it. I want that white to show through. I want that brown sprinkle to show through. And I'm just going to cover this whole thing with that hazelnut. Once I finish the hazelnut, I am coming in with my dryer just a little bit. I want this to still be a little damp. Now my plaster. I'm going to put a little bit of the Waverly plaster chalk paint on that piece of lovely paper that tore, that parchment paper that tore, and I am just dragging this across the top of my hazelnut painted piece. You see how this is coming out? I just love the look of this. It looks like old dirty wood. So once again, coming in, making sure that is all dry before I move on to my next step, which is, let's try ironing this again. I want this poster board to be flat because I want it to sit flat in the bottom of that tray. And it did pull up a little bit here and there, but that is the beauty of this project. It doesn't matter. This is a rustic insert for my rustic tray. Now on to my Iron Orchard transfers. Oh my goodness. I was looking at different pieces here to put on the center of the poster board that I created. And I have these antlers, and I thought that would be perfect. But I also have an image I printed out on my mulberry paper some time ago. And so I was looking between the two of these, and oh my goodness, I thought with the rusticness of my tray, how old this tray is, these antlers would be perfect. So now I'm just going to find the center point here of my poster board, and I'm going to put a little X underneath my transfer. And then I'm going to come in and put my rub-on transfer on down on top of my painted poster board. And this turned out gorgeous. Once I had the antlers on there, I cut out some snowflakes and some stars. And I'm coming in here and just cutting off the tips of those because they had little tips that you could have thread like they were ornaments. Well, I didn't want them to look like ornaments on my tray. I wanted them to be scattered stars and snowflakes. So I just took those tips off, laid these all around my card here, and rubbed those right on down. Once I got those all in place, I came in and cut out some trim. This holly and ivy trim was in the same pack, and I thought how perfect to edge the poster board. Just go around the edge, creating a draw in to the antlers themselves. So I just trimmed these all out and decided, I edged where exactly I wanted them to kind of meet up at the edge and come on in. And then I just burnished them right on down as well. I went ahead and did this all the way around my image here. Look at how gorgeous this is turning out. Now it's time to seal it, okay? I know it's poster board, but I want this sealed. I don't want this coming up. Look at what this clear wax does to this poster board image. Oh my gosh, it is absolutely dreamy. When I'm creating this, I am just tickled. And I know you guys get excited when you're creating something and you just love the way it's turning out. I just can't tell you how I was feeling about this. I was really happy with the way this turned out. So let's slide it in our tray.
Oh my goodness, y'all. Look at how beautiful that turned out. I am so happy with that. And of course, my little biscuit tree is kind of funky next to that beautiful tray, but I think they both turned out beautiful and will be a wonderful addition to this rustic Christmas theme. Let me know what you guys think. I will go ahead and do a different image on the back side of that so I can leave this beautiful tray out year round. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. Your time is precious, and I know it. I appreciate every minute you spend with me. As always, guys, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.